You know what's even scarier though? Have you ever heard of Unit 731? Unit 737?
Remind me what that is.
So the Japanese during the war.
Oh yes, I've heard of this.
That's
what were they doing again?
Conducting all 731. Yeah, they were conducting all kinds of. I mean, it makes the concentration camps in Germany look like kindergarten. I mean, just the amount of stuff they were doing, all kinds of inhuman experiments that they would they would connect like twins together. Like
they were doing like surgical experiments on people.
And the U.S., a lot of people don't know, they didn't really prosecute the people who were in charge because as a sort of, like a collateral, they're like, listen, we won't prosecute you if you give us your data on what you found. And
really?
The data was like useless. It was just all torture, basically.
There was also a Nazi named Miguel. I forget his first name, but his last name was Miguel. He was the Nazi that was like the famous for doing like surgical experiments on people, mainly children.
Can
you,
Dr. Mengele.
Yeah.
Mengele. Can you look him up, Steve?
That was on. I think it's on your notes.
On mine? Oh, you wrote about Mengele on the notes?
Oh yeah.
And I think he died in like Argentina at an old age too, which is really terrible. But
just like Hitler, right?
Yeah.
But there's a theory that thinks Hitler escaped to. We know a lot of them escaped to Argentina.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Okay.
But
So
we don't have the. We never had like any body of Hitler, right?
I think we did because they verified with the dental records.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the Soviets found him. Yeah, unless they're just saying that. I mean,
Right. But they never showed it. They just said it. From what I understand,
I believe so. Yeah, because his bunker was like torched. Mm-hmm. So it was just that's how they used the dental records. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, Mengele. So they were doing human experiments. So there's a theory out there. Well, it's not a theory. It's going back to this lady Annie again. Another one of her books called Area 51. She writes about the Roswell crash, the flying saucer that crashed in Roswell.
Yeah.
I want to say it was like 47, maybe late 47, July of 47, I believe it was. I could be wrong. She interviewed a guy who worked for. He was an engineer working for some covert American Cold War organization doing experiments and like testing like anti-gravity and doing all kinds of crazy experiments on shit. And he was he knew all about the Roswell investigation and like what it was all about. And he told Annie under anonymity for her book that the flying saucer that crashed was a World War II engineered machine that was created by the Wright brothers, and the two aliens that were in there were not aliens. They were children that were surgically deformed and altered by Mengele, sent over by Stalin to crash land here. They were like drone piloted by Stalin with these kids in there, and they were crashed here purposely to like create some sort of chaos in the U.S. and to sow panic, like panic across the nation that there's an alien invasion or whatever. And she asked him, she goes, well, if this is true, why would they hide this? Because if you just told the public that the Russians did this horrific shit, it would just make the Russians look bad, not us. And his answer was because as soon as we found that, we started doing the same exact thing.
I've never heard of that before. I mean, that's
not many people have. This guy
sounds a bit left field for me.
Well, there was also in the 70s and 80s, there was experiments done on the East Coast. There was a school for like children with Down syndrome, I believe, or like children with cognitive disabilities, where they were doing experiments on them. And I think Bill Clinton eventually shut it down in the early 90s. Can you find that, Steve?
Yeah, what okay, so Clinton.
Type in Clinton and then type in disabled children experiments.
And where was this taking place?
On the East Coast of the U.S. I want to say it was in New Jersey.
No,
What the hell is that?
Oh, it's an actual link. I thought it was a corrector.
Fact checking Clinton's story of meeting disabled children.
Keep going. No, that's not it. It's not meeting them. This is a fucking way more sinister than
Spotlight
that.
disability activists. Statements to sign. Yeah, it can be kind of tough. They do a
Keep
lot
going.
of kid
Human
activism.
radiation experiments. Is that it? That might be it. Click on it.
Might be like post nuclear war testing. You know?
Yep. This, I mean, it was Cold War shit. Where the fuck's the article?
Oh, why?
Is it paywall? No. Oh.
No, it's
Bill Clinton. Okay. President Bill Clinton commented on the final report on human radiation experiments conducted by the federal government between 1944 and 1974. The government failed in its duty to tell the truth and protect citizens. The president promised compensation for the victims of these experiments. He also offered a formal apology to the survivors, their families, and to all American people who must be able to rely on the United States to keep its word, tell the truth, and do the right thing. As an additional measure, President Clinton signed an executive order instructing every agency of the federal government which conducts, supports, or regulates research involving human beings to immediately review their procedures and report back by the end of the year. The president also created the Bioethics Advisory Commission to supervise such research. He hopes the commission will ensure the government never again strays from basic values of protecting and being truthful to its people. They were doing fucking radiation experiments on kids, dude.
I'm not sure if it was kids during that time. I mean, it's possible, but I know that they put a lot of GIs out in fields where they would detonate bombs. There's a very famous video of GIs in like a trench, and they detonate a bomb. You can see like the smoke streams.
Yeah, the nuclear soldiers and the nuclear veterans.
And they detonate the bomb, and they get up and they walk in the field. And I'm not sure if it's referencing that. I've never heard
Steve,
of
you're gonna have to dig a little more. It's definitely a hospital. It was definitely a school for kids, or some sort of place for children on the East Coast of the U.S.
Jeez.
For disabled children. They were doing it. I think it might have been radiation experiments or other types of experiments. But yeah, this was going on like during the time Bell Labs was big. You know, during when Bell Labs and up in Montauk. This was around that time. What is this, Massachusetts?
Wow.
At a Fernald school in Massachusetts, a school for disabled and special needs children, students were exposed to radioactive iron and calcium in the late 40s and 50s in a federally sponsored study.
Jeez.
Nuclear Museum, click on it. Yeah. I think this is what Clinton shut down.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah.
Yeah, human experimentation throughout the Cold War. Dude, they did a lot of fucked up shit in the Cold War, dude.
Gosh.
The Dark Ages.
Their parents were not informed of the full nature of the experiments. Between 53 and 57, Oak Ridge National Laboratory conducted uranium injection experiments on 11 patients in Massachusetts General Hospital as part of their continued health physics research. They discovered uranium localized in human kidneys at a much higher rate than previously thought, and therefore that maximum permissible levels were too high. Despite the efforts of this experiment, however, occupational standards for uranium did not change at any national laboratories. Keep going down.
I mean, they had the Tuskegee experiments too.
Yeah.
I mean, the government, well, I don't know what about the Cold War made people crazy with just like destruction, but
there it is about Bill Clinton. In the early 90s, uncovered the nature of the Albuquerque Tribune uncovered the nature of these human experiments and identified the patients. That's when Clinton shut it down.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah, Tuskegee,
Jeez.
dude. That's fucking horrific.
Love Canal too, but Tuskegee, yeah.
What's Love Canal?
In the 1940s. So this is actually where I live, out in Buffalo. Love Canal, he is doing it right now, was a neighborhood that was owned by Hooker Chemical Company, and they dumped all kinds of chemical waste. They plowed it over, and they sold it to the city of Niagara Falls, and they built neighborhoods over it. And for like 20, 30 years, kids were having like deformed growth defects and cancer and stuff, and the government was like, yeah, it's fine, just build houses here.
Right.
But not even like really being like terrible.
Well, DuPont did that too. You know, there's a whole documentary about how DuPont contaminated. They were a lot of the runoff from their nylon products.
Really?
The nonstick pans and the chemical they were using to create Teflon.
Teflon, yeah.
The nonstick pans. they were draining all of their waste and their byproducts into the rivers, and it was killing all the cattle. Like the first people to notice it were the farmers. They were saying their cattle was fucking dying. And then people were getting sick. People, like, there was tons of people that worked in DuPont that were getting cancer. The kids were being born deformed and shit. And there was a huge study. There's a documentary. Find out what the name of that documentary is called. Just call it the DuPont documentary about chemicals. The Devil We Know. That's what it is, dude.
I've heard of that too. I've just never seen it.
Sinister.